Recording in
Before or after
progress.
we take roll.
There we go.
Okie doke. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, at least I can.
Aguahido Oaks, Altamesa,
Here.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Here.
Deer Flats, Del Monte Beach,
Here.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Here.
Downtown,
Here.
Fisherman Flats. Did I see Marilyn? Fisherman Flats? Sorry, Marilyn. I think I see her.
Oh, now you can hear me. I'm
Okie doke, thank you. Glenwood,
here.
Monterey Vista,
Here.
New Monterey, Oak Grove,
Here.
Old Town,
Here.
Skyline,
Guten Tag.
and Villa Del Monte.
Here.
Okie doke, we have our quorum, Rick.
Okay, great. Tom, you want to go ahead and read the meeting notice?
Yes, thank you. Welcome to the May 19th meeting of the Monterey Neighborhood and Community Improvement Program. We encourage members of the public to join our meeting via Zoom Gov, which is a secure service for use by government agencies. Joining on Zoom is preferred because there is no lag time when you are connected to the meeting. However, this meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey with a delay of approximately 10 seconds, and also on Comcast Channel 25 with a delay of up to 90 seconds. If you plan to make a public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom Gov on the app or by telephone, making sure you join in time to accommodate any delay. To join the meeting from Zoom on your computer or phone, use the link or phone number on the agenda at isearchmonterey.org. Since this meeting has already begun, you'll find the agenda under the Recents tab at the bottom. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864. That's a toll-free number. And then enter webinar ID for tonight's meeting is 161-843-6636 and the pound or hashtag symbol. And if prompted to enter a participant ID, press the pound symbol again. This information is available at the top of tonight's agenda in red text, and detailed instructions on using Zoom are also available at monterey.org/public meetings. To make a public comment, please raise your hand using Zoom, or if you are connected by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Then you will also need to unmute yourself by dialing *6. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. We ask that public commenters turn off TV or computer speakers or go to another room while connected by phone, as any background noise will interfere with the broadcast. Each public speaker will be called on in the order that their hands were raised. The chair has designated a 3-minute time limit for tonight's meeting with a countdown timer shown on the screen. If you are connected live on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. Please stay within your time so that you won't need to be cut off. Thank you, and we look forward to receiving your public comments this evening.
Thank you, Tom. First item on the agenda is public comments. This is for any item not on the agenda. The public has 3 minutes to speak and address the NCIP on issues that are within the purview of NCIP, but again, not on any projects that are on tonight's agenda. That'll be later on in the meeting, and there'll be time with each neighborhood to go to speak to their project. So does anyone wish to make any general public comments at this time? Please raise your hand or come to the dais if you're in the council chambers. Do we have anyone in the council chambers?
Yes, there is one speaker.
Okay, please go ahead and introduce yourself and Welcome.
Hey, my name is Tom Reeves. I live at 844 Pine Street, New Monterey. Good to see you all here. I have a couple of general comments. As you know, I was heavily involved in the NCIP or NIP back in those days, workings, and many of the members brought forth concerns about how the NCIP was being used to address issues that some of the members said this is a CIP project, and that used to kind of get me a little bit because NIP projects are capital improvements. But I understood the concern, which is that the NCIP is not meant to backfill the general fund or gas tax or be used for projects that otherwise could be funded through other sources. And I see this moving further and further, the fence lines being pushed every year, it seems like, inexorably. I mean, I've been involved in this for over 20 some odd years, and I've seen this gradual glacial flow towards more and more projects that the council, yes, they have the ability to say, no, we're not going to fund that project, but I don't think that's in the spirit of the NIP or NCIP for them to box you in such a tight little corner as to say, we will only accept these kinds of projects, because that's not the intention. This is supposed to be a neighborhood grassroots organization that brings projects forward. I also feel that the council defunding the projects was not correct. I'm not an attorney, but I think that was a violation of the charter. It says very specifically that the council can, by 4/5 vote, defund projects to be appropriated, not the projects that have been appropriated. So what they did is they took the funding away from projects that had already been appropriated, and now you're left twisting in the wind, having to figure out how to get which ones back on the docket, so to speak, or on the project list. And lastly, I'll leave you with a project that was involved in my street that I had nominated, and fortunately it was funded, and that was for a storm drain improvement in the 800 block of Pine Street. Tom's well aware of this. It didn't address, in short, it did not address the problem. And so I'd like to ask the committee, not for an answer right now, but how would you address projects that failed to meet the intent of what they were originally funded for? Now, this was after this transition, after I had retired. We used to always meet with the advocate, but this was not the case. It was, Jeff came out one time, said, here are the plans, here's what we're going to do. It wasn't like, let's have a discussion. It was like, here's the solution I've come up with. And I said, I don't think that's going to work. So I'd like to see those addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Okay, online, I see Tammy Jennings has her hand up. You want to unmute Tammy and go ahead? You're muted.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
I just saw the city council meeting Tuesday night, and I'm just wondering, the budget they were talking about, they're having problems, and are we basically doing everything that we can for the NCIP? And then is there any possibility that they come back and say, okay, now we're going to unfund those projects that we've spent time doing this? Is there any possibility of that happening, or there isn't? I just am curious.
There's no way of knowing for sure. Anytime on a 4/5 vote, the council could vote, declare financial emergency, and take NCIP funds. No indication either way that I've received. So,
Okay, thank you.
I'm hoping we'll be just fine and we'll be moving forward. We asked them to make sure before they started it up again that we were going to be funded. So, thank you, Ms. Jennings. And I know I'm not supposed to be answering public comment, but in that case, I slapped my own hand. Any other member of the public to speak to general public comments?
We have a member in the council. In the chamber.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Violini, and I'm the CEO of the Monterey County Fair. So we are one of the projects that was defunded. We put in 2019 for lighting along Fairgrounds Road because it's a safety issue, not only during our events, but all year round. We've got kids from Santa Catalina walking, neighborhood residents walking, and Richard Rossello suggested that I come and speak tonight. We have kind of an interesting situation. We would be willing to pay for part of this project. The poles are not on our side of the fence. So it's something that, you know, as a state agency, we would be happy to resolve the issue ourselves, but there is an issue of ownership, which I can't control. So I just wanted to, you know, speak on that subject. And if there's anything that we could do to partner on this and get the job done, it would be appreciated. And it would be in the name of public safety. So thank you.
Great. Tom, if you could reach out to her and let her know that if they are willing to, you know, match funds or something that could be put on to the voting night. And so we would know and may impact people voting for the project.
Got it. Thank you, Rick.
Okay. Any other member of the public for general public comments? No one else in council chambers? Okay, we'll close public comments and move on to agenda item 1, which is approval of the minutes of the May 5th meeting. Does anyone have any additions or changes to those minutes? I don't see any hands raised in council chambers, and I don't see any hands raised online. I entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the minutes as stated.
I'll second.
Moved by Dennis and seconded by Glenwood Circle. All in favor, say aye, or roll call vote.
Okey doke. Altamesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman Flats,
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista,
Aye.
Oak Grove, Luce,
You're muted, Luce.
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
okay, Skyline,
Aye.
and Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
Okey doke.
Motion carries. Moving on to next item, agenda item 2, which is NCIP spokesperson report. I don't have anything new to report. It's been 2 weeks since our last meeting, and other than that, staff is still getting info pulled together on the funds that may need something allocated from ending balance, and I believe that's going to be on our next agenda, next meeting. They couldn't quite get everything ready for this one in time for the notice period. So, is that correct, Tom?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 3, which is the meat of tonight's agenda, which is the public input on proposals from Aguahido Oaks to New Monterey. The way for the public, and the members, the way this is going to work tonight is we'll go neighborhood by neighborhood. Tom will do a quick intro of the projects, naming them, and has some slides, quick slides to show to work through. At that point, we'll open it up to the public for any comments related to projects in that neighborhood. After the public has done all of their comments, yays, nays, questions, whatever that may be, we'll close the public hearing portion for that neighborhood, then I'll bring it back to the committee in case there's any questions or things related to the projects for any members of the committee. When those are done, then we'll move on to the next neighborhood and we'll work our way through and hopefully be expeditious and move through everything at a fairly good pace tonight. So we'll start with the first neighborhood is Altamesa. Tom?
Thank you. And I have several slides, just like even before we get to Altamesa, just here's a map this evening of all the neighborhoods in the city. We have our flow chart this evening. We're still in the project review phase. We're looking at the first half of the projects, the projects in the first half of the neighborhoods. And we will look at the second half of the neighborhoods starting June 2nd in 2 weeks. The project selection meeting, voting night occurs on June 16th. So that will be in 4 weeks from tonight. And here's the same information, harder to review. This year, as a reminder, there were 120 projects that were defunded by council in 2020 when the pandemic began. In early 2020, there were 65 projects that were nominated. They were screened that year, but then never, the NCIP cycle was canceled that year because of the pandemic. So those 65 projects were added to what we're looking at this year. And there were 20 projects nominated this year. In the review meetings that we've had, 2 meetings prior to tonight, 205 projects that were submitted have been pared down to 153 projects. This evening, we'll be going through the first half of the neighborhoods, Aguahido Oaks through New Monterey, and there are a total of 69 projects open for comment this evening. In 2 weeks, on June 2nd, the remaining 84 projects will be discussed. And then we'll start going through each neighborhood. So the first neighborhood is Aguahido Oaks, and there are no nominated projects this year. The next neighborhood is Altamesa, where we have 5 projects that were nominated. There are 3 for Dondavi Creek Path, 1 Iris Canyon Via Marada, and 1 on El Dorado. These are the 3 projects for the Dondavi Trail improvements. We have the Via Marada Iris Canyon intersection flood control project is eligible for Measure P and S funding. That's a note. And then the final project in Altamesa is the El Dorado tree removal on El Dorado Street. And here's just a list of those projects. Once again.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. At this point, we'll open the public hearing for all of the Altamesa projects. So any member of the public in the council chambers or online would like to address the committee on any of these projects, now's your time.
We have a member in the chamber.
Okay, please go ahead. Introduce yourself.
And it's not. Hi, I'm Donna Gibson. I'm speaking on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Commission. These 3 projects, AM5, AM7, and AM8, are projects in which we have supported in the past. While I understand funding is tight, I just want you to be aware that we have supported these projects in the past. If you would like to see a high priority list of projects that we'd like to see funded, the Parks and Recreation Commission can provide that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. It would be helpful for voting night to have your priority list, so just we have that information to work with. Go ahead. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm still Mike Dawson. I'm here to speak about the tree on El Dorado. It's a huge tree. It's a dirty tree, and it's a dangerous tree. We walk by that tree twice a day, almost every day, and it throws a lot of bark. And the only way that we can get by it either is behind the tree or in the road. And so it's a trip hazard, and my wife has tripped and fallen walking in back of that tree. Dangerous tree. eucalyptus, and this is a huge eucalyptus, are tending to drop a branch without any warning. And that could be a big headache for Mike going by the tree in the morning. And it's grown into the lane. If you're at the tree, you can look up at one of those branches and there's a piece of aluminum sticking out of it. So the big panel trucks either have to go on the median or risk losing pieces. I pick up pieces of truck about every 2 months. And I'm not saving them, but this tree should be removed. If it falls, it will take out power, phone, cable, and it will probably keep it out, keep all of those out for probably a week. So all my neighbors on Altamesa Circle, Altamesa Road, they'll be in the dark for that long because it's just a huge tree. So I would thank y'all for voting for it because it really needs removing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Questions? No?
No. Okay. Anyone else in the council chambers? Because I have no hands raised online.
There are no more speakers in the council chamber.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing portion for the Altamesa projects, bring it back to the committee. I've already spoken to these in the previous ones. Kurt, did I see a hand go up and down or?
No, I want to make clear, Tom, you said AM9 has Measure P and S funding. Is that correct?
He said it was eligible for it.
Can you find out if it can eligible and actually being happening are two different things? Is there some way we can find out before voting night that it's actually Measure P and S that can do this rather than us?
Well, it's eligible for Measure P&S funding. So yes, it could be funded under Measure P&S. If this was maybe we'll let the Public Works Director.
Yes, Mr. Wittry.
Good evening. I don't know if you can hear me. Hopefully we can. We are proceeding with Measure P&S funding to get this project accomplished. Obviously, we have money moving forward with that. If you would like to make a handout donation, obviously appreciate that. But we are proceeding with Measure P&S funding for that project for completion.
So in effect, it's a funded project.
It is a funded project.
So in which case, Tom, it can come off of our list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wittry. Any other member of the committee with any questions or things on Altamesa? Kurt? Is it back up or are you just not take? Okay, thank you.
Sorry about.
Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next neighborhood.
There is a question from
Oh, sorry.
from Lee.
Go ahead.
You go.
Okay, I had a quick question on like the tree removal. What is the city, how does the city normally take care of like dangerous trees? They work at pretty quickly at those. Why is this not already been taken care of if trucks are hitting this tree and so forth? Just a question how that normally works.
No, well, the process is if it's a funded project, we have to hire someone to take it out. We spoke with Parks manager is Louis Marcuzzo, who said that, oh yeah, this is an expensive tree to take out. So we would hire someone to come in and take it down. But
I guess the question though, if I'm understanding it, was when the city sees a dangerous tree, is there a process the city goes through to alleviate the danger? Forgetting about this project specifically. And if so, then if this is a dangerous tree, why has it not already been taken care of? And I see Mr. Wittry's hand up.
Nope.
The one evening I chose to actually do the evening from home, I called on quite often. So essentially, there is a process for a dangerous tree removal. It has to be evaluated and assessed by the forester. This particular tree has been assessed several times in the past. In fact, when the median went up in that road, there was discussion to remove the tree at that point in time. And it was decided that that was not a tree that was eligible for removal because it was not posing a threat at that point in time. As we move forward in time, we have different foresters and people change aspects. We look forward to evaluating it again. We don't have, other than the testimony tonight, documentation of a dangerous tree at that area. We have documentation. We begin a process to look at it, but that process does take a little bit of time.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Hopefully that answered your question, Hans.
And then 2 more questions in the chamber.
Okay.
Not so much of a question, but a comment. I drive through that neighborhood every day, and the droppings of the branches that I have to go over or like try to go around every single time I go through there. Those eucalyptus trees grow really tall and they're really, really heavy when those branches and things fall. So this should be a priority 1, danger, because if any branches fall on anybody that's walking or driving through that, major loss of life, injuries, lawsuits. So this should be addressed ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. And someone else in the council chambers? Scott Knight.
It's me, Dennis. Can we have that resolved in terms of whether or not the city is going to address it through Public Works before voting night, please?
Yes.
Because Steve mentioned that he will set it up for review, but can that be done before voting night?
Steve, is that a hand up to answer that?
It's just a small clarification. The Parks Department is no longer under Public Works, so we have to review through Louis and Parks and Rec. So but we can certainly make the reference towards Parks and Rec Department. That's just a quick clarification.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions on Altamesa? Okay, let's move on to the next neighborhood. And Mr. Wittree, is your hand still up or a new point? Thank you.
Sorry.
Next neighborhood is Casanova Oak Knoll. And we have 5 projects in Casanova Oak Knoll. First is the Casanova Mailway exit. This is a former project. It needs 1 sign that we're working with the streets department to have made and installed at the crosswalk on the far side. Fairground Road, Airport Road lighting. We heard from the applicant on this earlier. Casanova Oak Knoll Park improvements was a project, and the play structure at Casanova Oak Knoll Park. Mark Thomas Road, the bike and pedestrian connection. And those are the 5 projects in the Casanova Oak Knoll neighborhood.
Before I open the public hearing, Richard, I see your hand up. Is there something we need to cover before we go out to the public?
Yes. The project 1 for Kona, is that going to, Tom, is that still going to be a project? Are we going to take it out of the contingency fund? This crosswalk was put in 3 years ago. It just lacks 1 public safety sign. So I want to know if it's a valid project or if it's being taken care of.
It will be taken care of.
Okay.
Then we can cross that one off.
Thank you.
The second point wanted to make on project 5, COK 5. It's only 1 bench we requested. The notes are listing 2 benches. So we can eliminate the bench in the playground. We have already got 2 inside. So I imagine that's going to drop the project price down a lot. So we'll get rid of 1 bench. The other problem is one of our projects seems to have disappeared. And that's the one that replaces the fence around the park and puts the umbrellas in. Am I missing something, Tom? Is that project gone?
That was this project number 5 was for the fencing and the shade structures.
It doesn't, oh, all right. All right. Then I withdraw that comment. You got it right.
And
That should do it then. Just
Okay.
remove that one bench and remove project 1.
Okay, and as we get to other neighborhoods, let's keep comments like these until it's back to the committee and have the public hearing first.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Okay, any members of the public wish to address any of the Casa Oak Knoll projects? And I see online, Robert Yoha. Go ahead. Robert? You online? You have your hand raised. Go ahead. I don't show him being muted. Okay, we'll come back to Robert. Is there anyone in the council chambers who wishes to address any of the Kona projects? And yes, I see someone at the dais.
Yes, this is Donna Gibson again, speaking for Parks and Recreation Commission. We have supported the COK 5 project in the past. This is a heavily used park for that neighborhood, and we basically feel it's an important project to proceed.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go back to online. Robert, are you there? Okay. His audio must not be working, but Robert, are you there?
I'll call him and try to get him online.
Yeah. Okay.
See if he can fix it. If he can come back.
Yeah, he can come back. Anyone else in the council chambers?
There are no more in the council chamber at the moment.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the committee, but if Richard can get Robert, we'll have him still give his talk. But anyone in the committee wish to have any questions or anything related to the Casanova Knoll project?
One.
Jamie here.
Jamie, go ahead.
Just a quick question. The light project, I think, was originally estimated closer to 40,000. I'm guessing if we're reusing poles, we're going to actually be able to reduce it from the 120 that's on this screen.
That's probably true. We are taking just a standard fee right now of $20,000 per light. And there are 6 lights that are needed out there, or 6 poles that do not have lighting on them currently within the right of way. So we just took the 6 poles and multiplied by $20,000. If this is one of the projects that's prioritized by the committee, we'll dive in deeper and get a better estimate for it before it goes to council.
Because basically the overhead of getting it done, you only need to charge once.
Correct.
So you're going to
That's
save
correct.
money on the other poles.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
And hopefully there'll be some matching funds from the fairgrounds. Richard, have you been able to get Robert? Okay, any other member of the committee have any questions or things on Casa Oak Knoll? Okay, we will move on to the next neighborhood. However, if we are able to get audio from Robert at some point during the meeting, we'll go ahead and have him give us his comments. Okay, Tom.
And let me just, this seems like an appropriate time just to mention that comments may also be submitted by email. There are instructions on the agenda tonight. There are instructions on the NCIP web page. So you don't necessarily have to speak in person at the meeting. I know if you have difficulty, you can put those comments down in writing and we will enter them into the public record. All the committee will see them. They'll be available for public inspection. So
We've
that's
actually received quite a few comments in writing from folks already. that have been distributed out to the entire committee. So
Yeah, so just another way to provide comments without doing it in person this evening. So our next neighborhood, just moving on, is in Deer Flats. We have one project in Deer Flats. It's the bench renovation. And the intent, the basic intent is to reverse the direction that the benches are facing. The neighborhood would prefer to have them facing the field instead of the street, and then to relocate the fence so it's at the back of the sidewalk. And that is the project in Deer Flats.
okay, we'll go out, open the public hearing on the Deer Flats projects. If you're online and wish to speak, please raise your hand or approach the dais. Okay, I don't have anyone online. Anyone at the dais? Okay, seeing none, and any member, bring it back to the committee. Any member of the committee have any questions on the Deer Flats project? Okay, seeing none, and I'm not missing any hands raised in the council chambers, right?
No, there are none.
Okay.
It's like Robert Yoha is trying to raise his hand. So
It stayed raised. Okay, Robert, if you can go ahead, please, this is the Casanova Oakland project. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. All right. Thank you. Somehow I got unmuted. I would like to speak in support of the number 5 project, the replacement of the fence at Casanova Oak Knoll. There may be some confusion as to the color of the fence and the type of fence. When I originally submitted the proposal, we said we'd like to have a fence similar to the condominiums because they had a really nice vertical metal picket fence, and we have a 50-year-old institutional chain link fence. On the day that we met with Jeff Krebs with the engineering department and Rachel Dice with Parks, they said they would prefer to replace the fence with the one that you see there to the left, the vertical metal picket fence around the tot playground. It's a gray galvanized finish. And Richard Krebs pointed out that if we have a painted fence or even a powder coated fence, the salt air is going to corrode the metal and it won't last more than 10 to 12 years. And he wanted to have a 50-year lifespan on the fence because that's how long the chain link fence has been there. And then Rachel D said that she would prefer to also keep it the gray color so it connects with the tot area and differentiates the park from the condominium. And both she and Jeff Krebs said, yes, they want to make sure people realize that there's the park and there's the condominiums and that we don't have the same exact style of fence. And also, they reduced the fence height down to the same height as a tot lot, saving us a foot of height for just about 300 feet. So they were trying to reduce costs there. And Jeff pointed out that over the long run, a galvanized fence costs less to maintain and keeps the structure intact versus waiting for it to rust and trying to paint it by hand. And we would very much like to get that fence in there. The old chain link fence, we look like a prison. It's rather institutional. And when kids walk by, that's the one section of street where they like to throw their trash. They respect the other fences, but that chain link fence is just from a bygone era. So thank you for your patience with me speaking. This time it's not COVID blame for the details. It's either operator error or a button magically appeared on my screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Okay. There were no other comments on Deer Flats, so let's move on to the next neighborhood.
Is Del Monte Beach, and there are 9 projects. Took me a moment there. On this list, you'll notice that the Beachway Toilets has an asterisk at the end of it. The Del Monte Beach Tide Avenue security cameras has an asterisk behind it, and the Tide Avenue Bike Lockers, project number 12, also has an asterisk. These are projects that need additional approvals or city policy or some other action prior to constructing these physical projects. So they're just noted that way. And as we scroll through them, I'm just going to do it very quickly, but you'll notice what the restrictions are as we go through. So Thanks for that. Project number 1 is the Del Monte Beach Walkway Repair. This would be to repair the existing boardwalk that's installed over there. The project number 2 is the Spray Avenue Tot Lot Gazebo. Project number 3 is the Beachway Toilets. This would be one where the community-wide public restroom study, it's community-wide project number 9. Should proceed construction of new restrooms. We're hoping that we can look at the entire city and identify locations where restrooms are needed, and then how many facilities, like how big, how many stalls are needed at each location before we start constructing things that may not be needed. Project number 4 is the Tide Avenue security camera. And again, this one, we've discussed this in the past, but city policy is required. There is no current policy that the city has toward installing security cameras in public spaces. So that will be a, I was going to say hurdle, but that's probably not the correct word, but it will be an item that has to be addressed and resolved prior to actually installing the cameras. Spray Avenue Tot Lot, this is resurfacing the finish underneath the play structure, and the recreation trail, Casa Verde Way signage. This one, the intersection is being redesigned, and we'll see whether the signs are needed after construction is completed. That's our thought, Public Works thought on that one. Del Monte Beach Project 11 is for the walkway replacement. So these are the same boardwalks that exist, but it's to replace the sections rather than just repair them as needed. Project number 12 is for the bike lockers on Tide Avenue. This is another one where city policy will need to be established prior to installing these bike lockers if this is an approved project. It would have to go to council because there's funding. I mean, people will be paying for these, so money will be involved. The policy will be needed. We don't have one currently. And then project number 13 is the Beachway Habitat Protection and Park Improvements project. And those are the Del Monte Beach projects this year.
Okay, thank you, Tom. At this point, we'll open the public hearing on the Del Monte Beach projects. I know we've received quite a few comments in writing on Del Monte Beach projects. So, you're free to speak again if you have submitted comments, but we have those. So, and we are all reading them. So any member of the public who wishes to speak to any Del Monte Beach projects, either approach the dais or raise your hand online.
One is coming.
Okay. I have no hands raised online.
It's Donna Gibson of Parks and Recreation Commission. The 3 projects that we had supported in the past are DMB 1, the walkway repair, DMB 2, the gazebo at the tot lot, and DMB 5, the resurfacing of the tot lot area. Those are the 3 that we would support. We supported in the past. Depends on the money, I guess. You guys have to make that decision.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think you're going to be getting exercise tonight, coming up and forth to the dais. I see no hands raised online. Is there anyone else in the council chambers?
There is no one else in the chamber.
Seeing none, bring it back to the committee. Richard, go ahead.
Yes, I've read the letters of support and opposition. They seem to be quite passionate both ways. I'm just wondering if the NCIP rep has a consensus on these projects. And my second comment is the beachway toilets. I know we're going to go to a study first, but it's that $1 million bill that tells me it's being priced out as a concrete block structure. And I thought we went over that, but I guess the study would show the benefits of the lower cost elements. Thank you.
Thank you. Kurt, go ahead.
So on DMB 1 versus the replacement of DMB 11, if we do DMB 11, is there any need for DMB 1 or vice versa?
I think Jamie's waving her hand and wants to address that.
So, yeah, I was going to start with a couple of housekeeping comments and cleanups. And one of them was that actually on DMB4, the camera is not necessarily going to be located on tide. That's not material. And that DMB11 was actually an ask by the neighborhood whether the entire length of that first piece that was built on the block of tide should be replaced instead of individual spots, all of the wood. So I suspect that the price for that is higher than the price we've seen tonight. And that's the difference between those two. I was estimating 300,000 is just rough. So that's an answer. But if I could jump in a little bit, I want to say thank you, everybody, for reading all those emails and letters. If you haven't seen them, there's a number, and there's a couple that address the walkway replacement, and there's a number that address the toilets. What we've done for the last decade and a half is we've used an internet company to do a survey of every person living in the neighborhood. That's not owners, that's everybody living in the neighborhood. And we've done that survey again this year. We post it publicly, we go door to door with the links to gather it. And this year we got the most participation we've ever received. This survey that we do is not one that was done earlier in the year by the Neighborhood Association to assess which old projects should continue. This is brand new. It had all the new projects on it. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of jump right in. Usually at this meeting, we talk about what the neighborhood's priorities are. And I haven't heard that on the last couple of neighborhoods, but this is how we set our presentation to you of the neighborhood's priorities. And what I've done, and I'm going to put the whole survey into the package so you guys can see it. There's a couple ways we do it. One, we do a weighted measure of what the survey responses are. So we get a numeric value that places them. But we also look to see how many people kind of put it in their top set of projects and how many people put it to the bottom set of projects. Both of those, when we do that, put the security camera as number one. And that is a 32 points out of 40. So, and 79% of the people that reported for it said this was in their tops. So it wasn't a random, it was very heavily favored. The second priority for the neighborhood is walkway repairs. And you can see by those letters, there's been a couple trip and falls. They're pretty serious. The third priority is the replacement, but folks felt that was a lot of money to spend when we estimated for the whole beach. So Del Monte Beach 4 is number one. Del Monte Beach 1 is number 2. Del Monte Beach 11 is number 3. Del Monte Beach 13, and this is a new project. This isn't a coming back project. Del Monte Beach 13 is number 4. Del Monte Beach 5, resurfacing, is number 5. Del Monte Beach 2, tot lot gazebo, is number 6. Del Monte Beach toilet, number 3, is number 7. And Del Monte Beach 12, Tide Avenue bike lockers, is number 8. So we've had a lot of discussions in the neighborhood since those original surveys at the beginning of the year, and people have really come out to talk to us about it. So I'm going to put the survey in the package, and you'll see the comments that everybody made as they were voting to go along with the actual votes that we received to support those. So I think there's your priorities. There's your comments. Are there any questions?
Nope. And Kurt, I want to make sure that we covered that you got all your questions answered too. Because we kind of jumped away from you to get you your answer.
I think I understand what Jamie was saying. So I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member of the committee?
It'd be nice to get some price estimates for the 2 walkway projects, what the difference would be by doing single boards versus that. So we can get some idea of how much money.
I'll give you a hint. In the past, we've been asking for about 15,000 a year. So Parks came back and said, just for repair, 50. So that tells you how much worse it is. And the way it works is they just spend it till the money's gone. And then they come back next year and ask for more. So that's the story behind the replacement project Del Monte Beach number one. The other one's really kind of a question to the city. Are we in such bad shape at some point that we need to just stop patching it? And can we afford to do that? So thank you.
I actually have two members of the public after we closed the public hearing who raised their hands to speak on this. I'll go ahead and allow it, but please, on the upcoming neighborhoods, speak raise your hand during the public comment timeframe, not after it's been brought back to the committee. The first is Laura Nagle, President Del Monte Beach Neighborhood Association.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, I had not been told of the survey results of the Survey Monkey that Jamie just reported on. Our neighborhood association, of which Jamie's a part, did a survey of every residence in the area, and we had twice the response that she's reporting. We had over 70 people responding, and the number one selection was for the replacement of the porta potties. So I really have to disagree with the Survey Monkey. I mean, we spent our money to mail to every residence in the neighborhood, whether or not they were members of our association. And the number one response was for the toilets. And I have written to all of you about why this is important, so important for our neighborhood, but also for the city. So I hope that will be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got a Deborah Proctor with a hand up. Go ahead. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. One concern that I have with the bike lockers and a few of these other parts, I live at Del Monte Beach on Dune Crest, is the entrance and exit roads for the neighborhood. I'm not sure why these aren't addressed, because the sidewalks are starting to fall apart, and safe entry for bikers and pedestrians is compromised. I've seen many near hits for bikes riding up the hill or down the hill, sometimes including myself, and the exit for the sidewalk is falling down over the cliff. So it's kind of odd that we have bike lockers suggested when actually just getting into the neighborhood isn't safe. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now I've definitely closed the public hearing portion of it. Anyone else in the committee who have any questions?
Point of clarification, we did receive more than 70 responses on the annual survey that we did. But more importantly, the safe entry and exits, we can't do new projects here tonight, but we'll certainly be bringing more projects back for the next year. So I wanted to just put that out to everybody in the neighborhood to thank you for those ideas.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move. No one else have their hands raised in the council chambers? Okay, let's move on to the next neighborhood.
Next neighborhood is Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande. We have 10 projects nominated. I will page through them quickly. This is Virgin Avenue, Grant Avenue, memorial sign and plaque for one of the neighbors who live there. Casanova Avenue between Branner and Kolb is looking for radar speed signs to be installed. On Casanova again, between Toyon and Sequoia, a sidewalk where there is none. You can see on the photo on the right. Same block, there's a street light being requested about mid-block. Del Monte Grove neighborhood crime watch signs, asking for replacement of the existing signs there. There is a project at Laguna Grande Park for the parking lot lighting. That'd be a bollard style lighting, and also a separate project for signage at Del Monte or Laguna Grande Park. At Laguna Grande Court, tot lot. There's a project for sidewalk repair replacement. This is a project that is covered under Measure P and S, and it's been added to the list. So I heard this week that Public Works will be out there to grind it down and then put it on the list for replacement moving forward. And then project number 10 is Laguna Grande, the soccer field for the fencing. This project is located outside the city of Monterey. It's actually in the city of Seaside. So that's an issue that will have to be resolved. Project number 11 is for widening the existing decomposed granite sidewalk. It's called a path here. And those are very brief descriptions of the projects in Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande.
Okay. We'll open it up for public hearing, and online I have a hand raised by Esther.
Good evening, everybody. This is Esther Malkin. I'm the current president of our neighborhood association. I submitted a pretty extensive email to you guys, and I know you got some supporting emails from other board members and residents, but I wanted to speak to a couple of these for some perspective, since Tom is relatively new and NCIP has gone through so many different changes once it turned over from NIP. So just for some perspective, we have a lot of projects on here, mostly because we haven't had much going on over here. And we've gone through 3 presidents. Scott was president, Scott Hansen at one point, Steve Cry and myself now. And all of us over the past decade have submitted and resubmitted a number of these projects, and they've been overlooked. And over the past decade, all the safety items that we submitted have been shown to have gotten worse and need attention. I wanted to just mention to Tom that the comment he made about the soccer field being in Seaside, that is a mistake that NCIP made. That Jeff Krebs admitted to me 10 years ago that they did that over there. And it was a gift to Seaside because nobody knew it was part of Seaside until it was done. So I'm not saying that we should be doing the fencing. Maybe as a thank you for doing the fencing, you can approach Seaside about it. But I just want to make sure that he understands that that wasn't something that was a mistake on NIP's part. So mostly I want to point out that in my email to you guys, I prioritized our safety related priority projects here. They're, oh, hello? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, sorry, I got a weird notice on my device here. So anyway, the speeding problems that we have here on Casanova have been heavily documented by the Monterey Police Department, who are over here with their LiDAR guns on a regular basis for the last 5 or 6 years. We've had the traffic trailer from the police department, that big one that they use during events, placed on this stretch of Casanova Avenue at least every other month for the last couple of years, because that's the only way we've gotten some compliance to the current speed limit. So that's why we are asking for safety related issues. We've had a number of accidents right in that stretch, particularly with injuries, and we've had parked cars get hit and run. So this is a really big problem that we have been addressing for a decade. So I wanted to point that out, as well as the Laguna Grande parking lot lighting.
Thank you, but your time is elapsed.
Oh, I didn't know we had limits.
It's a 3-minute limit for public comments.
Well, I thought that was during the opening public comments, but all right, whatever.
We do have your email, Esther, so we will review it. Okay, now, is there anyone in the public in the council chambers? If not, I've got a Brandon Naylor online. Go ahead, Brandon. Unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I just want to, hit on the same points that Esther had mentioned. A lot of what we're asking for in Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande is safety related, specifically on Casanova with the sidewalk, the radar speed signs, and the street lights. I actually know someone who's been, attacked walking down Casanova Avenue in a poorly lit section. So this is something that I take rather personally. Additionally, I want to advocate for the lighting at the Laguna Grande Park. Every morning when I walk my dogs there, I see people who, that they sleep there in their cars because they don't have anywhere else safe to go. And I just want to kind of say that that's something where we need to focus on making that a safer place for our community. I yield my time.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Is there anyone in the council chambers?
There is not.
Okay, I don't have anyone else online with hands up. So at this point, we'll close the public hearing and return it to the committee. Do I have any member of the committee who has questions or wish to address any of these items? Tom, does anyone in council? I see someone with a hand up.
Yes, Scott.
Scott.
Oh, I wanted to thank everybody for submitting the letters. There were several of them, and for the other committee members for reading them. And I would just echo what Esther and Brandon said. It's safety related. The lighting at the park, it's a magnet for misbehavior during dark hours. And Casanova Avenue, it's a speedway. It's an unobstructed quarter-mile stretch. I don't know of anywhere else where there's that big of a, a place where if someone is so inclined to test their car's limits without obstruction. So that's why the radar signs, I think, would be first in order. And thanks to Cody for sending me the email about the getting the residents input or sign off for the street light, and I'll get to work on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the committee who wish to ask any questions or any statements? I don't think I see any hands up in the council chambers.
Oh, just one.
Jamie?
Quick question. We do have a sign department at the city. So when it comes to signs about rules, I wouldn't think that you need to wait for NCIP to get that done. I would think you'd be able to just get the sign department to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think since that was submitted, signs have popped up. So I would question whether that item is still necessary.
Okay. You're talking DMG 6?
Well, that
crime watch signs?
Yes. Well, 6 of those are still available, but the DMG 8, the park signage.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
I don't want to, I think in my personal opinion is that park is at the point where we're at the sign overload stage. But that's just my taste.
Okay. Any other members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the next neighborhood.
Next neighborhood is the downtown neighborhood. We have 5 projects that are nominated this year. I will flip through them quickly. The first is project number 4. It's the Jack's Park for the baseball statue relocation and lighting. Project number 5 is the Hartnell Gulch Stream Restoration. This would be phase 1 of 2 phases for restoring the Hartnell Gulch Stream. Project number 14 is at Hartnell Street and Webster, right in front of the post office for a crosswalk with flashing beacons. Project number 16 is at Church Street and Figueroa for a raised crosswalk at the intersection. Project number 25 is for a lighted crosswalk with flashing beacons across Camino El Estero at Webster Street, adjacent to El Estero Park. And those are the 5 downtown projects.
Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. At this point, I do have a couple of hands up online. First is Melissa M. Please unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of the proposed crosswalk upgrade at Webster Street and Camino El Estero DT 25. I proposed the project as a member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association and as a regular user of this crosswalk. My husband and I have lived on Webster Street for 12 years. And in that time, we've been daily users of the crosswalk. Our personal experience and observations of other users has led me to propose this upgrade to a flashing light crosswalk like the one in front of the Monterey Sports Center. The current crosswalk is often unsafe for the average pedestrian and dangerous for children and anyone that may move at a slower pace for any reason. The unsafe conditions are due to several factors, including the vehicles, large box trucks, and RVs that are regularly parked along Camino El Estero. They cause a line of sight blockage that prevents drivers from being able to see pedestrians waiting. The speed of drivers along this stretch is also a factor, as well as the location in the middle of the block without stop signs to aid the pedestrian. I believe an upgrade to flashing lights in the crosswalk that spans across the street will not just enhance safety for pedestrians and cyclists, but it will also serve to help slow speeding traffic as drivers learn to anticipate pedestrians. This crosswalk is used daily by families during drop-off and pickup at the YMCA, summer camps going to Dennis the Menace, and others that are going to and from appointments in the neighborhood. Thank you for considering the proposal and all proposals that make Monterey a pedestrian and bicycle-friendly community.
Thank you, Ms. Is there anyone in the council chambers wishing to address this neighborhood?
There is one speaker at the podium.
Yeah, we'll do that speaker, then we'll go back to 2 people online. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to speak to the DT5. As some of you might know, what's been keeping me out of trouble since retirement is I serve on the board of directors of the Big Sur Land Trust, and I'm also an avid volunteer with that organization. And they too are going to be working on some landscaping improvements in the Hartnell Gulch part of their property, because they own the property that's the first federal court adobe. So I encourage the city to coordinate with them if and when this gets funded. And then a quick administrative question. Are we only going through new projects that have been nominated, or are these also like the ones that got dumped in 2020 and are now backing?
These are the ones that were funded and then defunded. They were the ones in 2020 that were nominated, and then when they were put on hold because we didn't finish the process, and there are new ones. So it's all 3.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Gary Krieger online. Unmute yourself and go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
There we go. You got hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the chance to talk. I've been at speaking on DT16. I have been at San Carlos School since 1997, at first as a parent, and then when I retired from the Navy in 2007 as a teacher there. And the traffic on First Street is, you probably know, pretty crazy in the mornings and in the afternoons, but especially in the mornings. And I'm just would strongly encourage you to put in that raised crosswalk. I would say anything that slows down traffic on Church Street is a real benefit. I'd love to see you consider at some point possibly another raised crosswalk in front of in the middle of the street of Church coming down. It's anything though that slows down the traffic and maybe encourages people to stop using it as a shortcut in the mornings would be great. We have kids everywhere. My principal asked me about 6 years ago to go out there and start doing crosswalk in the morning because it was getting so crazy. So I've been out there every morning for about 6 years now, and it's a handful. So anything you guys can do to help out, we appreciate the drop-off zones that you put in, and the raised crosswalk would be equally appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, also online, we have Teresa Bennett.
Thank you. As Gary said, that the street that our school is on is used as oftentimes as a shortcut for the downtown area. And throughout the day, cars come speeding through, roll through the stop sign and make a right-hand turn in their hurry to go downtown. We use that crosswalk throughout the day at arrival, going to PE classes across to the field, to recess and lunch and at dismissal. And several times a day, you will see cars speed through and make a right-hand turn without stopping. I really do feel like a raised crosswalk will increase the safety for the students, make them more visible. And also, I think it would deter people who are using it as a shortcut and a quick way to get downtown. I just think needing to slow down because of the raised crosswalk, that it'll inhibit people from coming through there as just a quick speedy way to get downtown. The other problem that we have down there is, as you see on that intersection, it's a one-way street. There are cars that come and make a right-hand turn from Figueroa onto Church Street and go the opposite way so regularly that I did submit a video from one of my parents when they took a video of a car doing just that. So we cross the students there quite often, and we would, as Mr. Krieger said, we would greatly appreciate any help we can in keeping the students safe. And I do believe a raised crosswalk there would meet those requirements on all levels. So thank you so much for what you do. And we did put this, we put this out prior to COVID, but I just wanted to make sure that we attended this meeting to let you know it is still a safety issue, and we would appreciate any kind of assistance we can get with trying to manage that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the council chambers? Okay. Yes, go ahead. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Rick, I think AMP needs to unmute the, oh, there we go.
Okay. All right.
Okay, are we good?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, let me start again. DT5, the Hardwell Gulch Stream Restoration. The issue is really the embankment that runs behind the library. It's right where the library parking lot is, in the back of the building. The stream embankment runs for a longer space, but at some point that's going to become a concern. And that's why we support it from Parks and Recreation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else in the council chambers?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, my name is Sherna Stewart, and I wanted to just mention about downtown number 4, about the Jacks Park. But I just also wanted to say how wonderful it is that the neighborhood improvement program is back. It's one of the defining features of Monterey that is, it's just a splendid civic institution. And I gather that, you know, at one time it seemed like those funds weren't going to come back, but it's just a very noble thing that they have come back. And it seems that it's fortunate that it's in some way the NIP funds were helpful at keeping the city going. I think that's a very special feature of Monterey's civic arrangements. I just wanted to mention that the Jacks Peak Park was originally, somebody in the city asked me about it who had kids. I don't have kids, how to make it more noticeable. It's down at the end of Bonifacio Street. It doesn't show up on the screen there at the moment. There it is. It's down at the end of Bonifacio Street. You can see there's a little boy's sculpture on top of the announcer's booth. And in thinking about how to make it more visible as a feature of the city, it just seemed to me that it's in a very invisible situation. You actually can't see it until you're almost on top of it, and then only if you're looking up. But it's a very distinctive and delightful feature. And the project actually called for a scaled up version of that same sculpture on a pedestal in a way that might be interactive with people that were using the park or as a meeting place. I don't know that lighting is essential since mostly baseball stuff is during the summer when the days are longer. But it just would be part of making Monterey more livable, comprehensible, and bringing out not just bringing out things that are of interest to the local community and highlight sports. I think that's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in council chambers?
There is no one.
Okay, there's no one online. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the committee. Any members of the committee have any questions or comments? Kurt, go ahead.
I just want to make a comment about you'll notice that we have a lot of safety issues. And I wanted to mention about the Church Street and the raised sidewalk, as you've heard. But I also want to reiterate about Camino El Estero crosswalk. I drive by there quite a bit, and if the RVs or big trucks are parked there, it's extremely dangerous. To everybody's consternation behind me, I slow down to about 25 when I get close to that crosswalk because I can't see if somebody's getting ready to step out. And most people that are going through there are doing 35 or 40. So I just wanted to raise those two issues, plus the other crosswalks that we have. That was it.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Any other member of the committee?
There's three.
Yeah, Jamie, you keep hiding your hand in front of the American flag.
I was thinking I got to change what color I wear next time. Okay, 2 questions. Question number 1, and by the way, I've stood at the Webster El Camino crosswalk for some time and not been able to cross. So my question is, how come a lighted crosswalk on DT 14 costs $45,000 and a lighted crosswalk on DT 25 costs $75,000? That's question number 1.
Can I answer right now? That's a great question. The reasoning, the traffic advisory committee looked at this and thought it would be wise to put curb extensions like bulb outs come out. So we added a few, $30,000 more to that one over the one in front of the library.
Makes sense. And then question number 2 is, and it's early days, but DT5, if we've got things going on with the Big Sur Land Trust, and we're looking at that whole Hartnell Gulch stream restoration, that's just a really big bite to take off when we have so many projects that we're trying to get back on the list. I wonder if, in the interest of synergy and speed, a smaller bite might be easier to fund. So that's something I want to push back to the neighborhood or the submitter. So, I mean, that was what it was written up for before. I'm just saying today's a different day.
Actually, that's what it was. Was that what it was funded for before, Tom?
Yes. Oh, where's that one? And this is actually, just to clarify too, the Big Sur Land Trust, you can maybe not see from the map. But this would be the section that's not adjacent to the Big Sur Land Trust's office there. But there's another smaller piece on the northeast side of Hartnell Street that goes down that would be. So that could be a possibility.
Okay, anyone else in the council chambers with a hand up? Go ahead.
DT 14, I would like to support wholeheartedly. I almost got hit the other day. I needed to take something to the post office, so I couldn't leave any other place. And that's got to be like, but I probably 1 through 3, that's got to be the worst top 3 of corners for speeding and turning, that it really needs that flashing, that RFP. Also, I'd like to speak on number downtown 25 with that crosswalk with the light, the flashing light. There are speeding issues over there, and I think that's definitely necessary. The RFP, the flashing light, but I think it's also time to call PD and have the watch commander come and meet with the neighborhood and discuss the speeding problems with that, because I think heightened in presence of them. I know they're down in staff. I know we're spreading them thin like peanut butter, but they're just their presence of an occasional drive-through really will cut that speeding down. I've done it in my neighborhood because I used to have the raceway up on Glenwood Circle. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands up in the council chambers?
There are none.
Okay, then we'll close this neighborhood and let's move on to the next one.
Next neighborhood is Fisherman's Flats. There are 5 projects located in Fisherman's Flats this year. Project number 2 is Via Casoli. There is a sewer odor prevention problem. Project number 3 is a proposed streetlight at the end of Via Maritimo. Project number 5 is the entry wall rehabilitation at Via Sola, right off Jocelyn Canyon Road. And project number 6 is at Fisherman's Flats Park for tree replacement. And project number 7 is at Via Isola for a vehicular turnaround. That's like a cul-de-sac. This is another one that we have an asterisk next to because this project is located outside the city of Monterey. It's partially within Monterey County, and the regional parks, I believe, owns that portion of the property. Those are the 5 projects in Fisherman's Flats.
Thank you, Tom. We'll open the public hearing. Any member of the public wish to address any of the Fisherman's Flats projects? Now's your time. Do we have anyone in the council chambers?
Yes, we do.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Donna Gibson again, Parks and Rec Commission, in support of FF6. In terms of tree replacement, might I suggest though that you consider smaller trees? That's what's just done in Oak Newton Park, and we are in a drought. And I think large trees might be out of the question. Smaller trees won't take as much water. And I think it'll add significantly to the park. It just takes time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the council chambers?
That's it for here for now.
Okay, there's no one with a hand raised online. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the committee. Any member of the committee wish to ask questions or address any of these projects?
Marilyn has her hand raised.
I'm just wondering what happened to our radar signs on Jocelyn Canyon Road. Has that been taken care of?
They've been moved to community-wide projects. So we will be
I missed
discussing
that.
them
Sorry.
in 2
Thank
weeks.
you.
Yep.
Okay. Any member of the committee? Seeing none, let's move on to next neighborhood.
Next neighborhood is Glenwood, and there are no projects in Glenwood this year.
So, Monterey Vista.
Monterey Vista is next with 14 nominated projects. There are, well, here's the list. This is the first page, and here's the rest on the second page. And we will begin going through them. Project number 5 is Via del Rey at Hermann. It's an intersection. It's the street light. We just need to get power to it. Project number 7 is Monterey Vista street markings. This project is eligible to be funded under the gas tax. So it will get done. NCIP could contribute to it, but it's another one where there is another source of funding to complete the project. Project number 8 is the street name sign replacement. Project number 10 is San Bernabe Drive road and walkway design, the design completion. Project number 11 is El Caminito del Norte for a street light. One is proposed there. Project number 12 is on Dry Creek Road, the storm drain. It's the replacement of the grate that you can maybe see on the left of that photo. Project number 13, Mar Vista Drive traffic calming phase 1 construction. This is the Mar Vista Tota Vista intersection. Project number 14 at Via Paraiso Park is a basketball court upgrade. Project number 15 is Cielo Vista Drive, Place and Terrace. This project was amended or revised the description just to include only the drainage upgrades along the streets in this neighborhood. Project number 16 is at Via Paraiso Park. It's for the expression swings. Project number 17 is on Soledad Drive. It's a traffic calming and asking for radar speed signs. And project number 18 is San Bernabe phase 1 of the road reconstruction. Project number 19 is Mar Vista Drive traffic calming phase 2. This is Mar Vista at Via Gayuba. Be to redo that intersection. Project number 21 is the tennis court striping at Via Paraiso Park. And that is the list for Monterey Vista.
Okay, we'll open up the public hearing for Monterey Vista projects. If you're online, go ahead and you wish to speak to these, raise your hand or approach the dais if you're in council chambers. I've got one person online, Jane Sink. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The inadequate drainage on Cielo Vista Drive causes water to spill into different streets and housing areas, and it's wreaking havoc on the drain areas on the sides of the road. And so we fully support and hope that this project goes through. My husband is here. Would you like to support that?
Yeah. The overall project was larger, and this is apparently narrowed down to just the drainage part of this, but there are other issues on our street, especially in terms of traffic and parking on both sides of the street, so that you cannot get down the street. And so we were asking for some signage of no parking on one side. I don't know why that kind of got left out. But the drainage problem is a big problem. It's carving sort of small Grand Canyons in some places. Also, the side ditches are completely overgrown in others where it's silted in, and grasses, weeds, and ivy have grown in. So that causes a problem also for pedestrians that sometimes try to walk on our street, or I should say very frequently do. And so you're dodging cars when you come up, and there's no place for pedestrians to go if there's two cars coming down the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the council chambers, Tom?
There are several, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Bob Tachibana, and I'm referencing MV 11 for the street lights. I've lived there for over 40 years now, and we have not had one. And in that entire circle, it is the darkest part of the whole street. And so I'm requesting it was approved once. I got most of our neighborhoods to sign the petition asking for that request. And I'm back here again, asking for approval of that same project.
Thank you. The next person?
Yes, my name is it on? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I'm Gina Sessions, and I'm speaking on behalf of the San Bernabe S-curve project, both the design completion and the road improvement. This is a neighborhood embraced safety project. If anyone has driven down San Bernabe Drive, there's a huge S-curve that goes downhill and back uphill. It's blind. It is not fully a two-car street, so there's a chance that cars could collide if they're coming at the same place at the same time. Walkers have no walkway, no safe place to jump actually anymore, out of the way of cars, because there's green park on one side and broken, I think it was, what is it called, compressed granite or whatever it is, that odd walkway that was put in at some time in Monterey. This was approved prior to the COVID economic problems. The design was partially done. We had enormous neighborhood buy-in. We had a meeting at my house with the planning department, reviewed the plans that were nearly done. We had great participation, probably 6 different families came. And currently we still have a lot of support. Karen Hart, Charles Allen Poole, myself and my husband, our neighbors, Robert Atancio and Paul Bullwinkle, and some down the street neighbors. We've got, I can't give their names because I didn't actually get them to say I could today, but there are neighbors down Bartolomeo and Via Esperanza that also walk regularly in our neighborhood and understand it's extremely dangerous. So on behalf of everyone in the neighborhood, we'd like to get it back on the docket and finish the design and then look at what we could do this year in terms of the repair. It's a large project. We know it won't receive the full funding that was assessed by the planning department, but we would like to get that started. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you.
One more here.
Okay, there's no one online, so.
Good to go. Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Elahi. I'm here in support of MV14, the basketball court upgrade. This court is over 35 years old. There are lots of dips and cracks that make it unsafe to play a game of basketball at this court. I went around door to door around the Monterey Vista neighborhood asking for support, and granted, it was a small effort, and yet there was enthusiastic support for this. 94% of the people that I talked to supported the idea. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much. I've got a telephone caller online with a hand up. You could unmute them and have them go ahead. Go ahead. It ends in 157.
Hi. Hi, this is Debbie, and I'm calling in about MV12. This is a storm drain on Dry Creek. So one of the storm drains on the west side of Dry Creek was replaced about 10 years ago. And there hasn't been any backup on because of that new storm drain. But the one diagonally across the street on the east side of the street, it backs up all the time during the rainy season. So all the debris comes down the hill and backs that storm drain up, and then the water flows down my driveway and into my garage. We've been trying to be very diligent about getting out and cleaning it and, you know, keeping it debris free. But there are times when it's raining at night and it'll be 2 o'clock in the morning and the water is piling up in our garage. So we would ask that that storm drain be changed out.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Any other member of the public in the council chambers?
We are good here.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll bring it back to the commission. Any commission with questions or comments? Jamie? You're getting the wave down good.
Thank you. So interesting question that, you know, this caller makes me think. We heard about it at the beginning of this meeting, and I heard from a number of the residents in my neighborhood that it's important for the NCIP to spend money on things that are enhancing and not to spend things just because the city hasn't done it. And when I hear about a storm drain that's damaging personal property, and I'm thinking if you put it on the NCIP list and we approve it, you're putting yourself in for a long delay. It could be years. So it seems like if there's something in the public right of way that's causing a problem, NCIP would not be the place to get it fixed. Question.
Yeah, like I hear your comments, and now that we're aware of the problem, or I'm aware of it, we could talk about what we can do there. But I don't disagree.
Yeah, that project had been funded, so it's back here, but I think it's still a valid project, but I think we definitely can look at getting that done even outside of that. But it is definitely an issue up there. We've met several times up there, and it's just one of those old storm drains with a narrow, tiny slots that weighs 500 pounds that should be replaced by one of the metal grates. That's can absorb a lot more water. Definitely, it's a critical project. Just to go through a few of the other projects, the MV5 is really just as it's a light. Everybody there, it's just wiring up the traffic light. The street light is there. It's that intersection we've done. That's been done, mostly done. If you've driven by there, the local residents are really happy what was done, are very appreciative of the city doing that intersection. The homeowners there planted that bulb out, and it looks really nice. If you've been there, there's a bench there. People enjoy sitting on it. And if you haven't been by there, read some of the wishes on the wishing fence. It's quite an entertaining and interesting thing to see, to read people's cards. So I encourage you to go by there. But all we got to do is we will get signatures, but I think we have most of those signatures already. Want to talk a little bit about the Mar Vista traffic calming. There is still an active project to finish the design. The two projects that were actually, one was funded on the upper intersection was funded on Toda Vista, and the second one was last year put in on top of Via Gayuba. The project for Toda Vista somehow jumped from 237,000 to 760,000. So I think that was a pretty wild price jump. So we hope that price comes down quite a bit when we actually evaluate it more thoroughly. I'm not quite sure why it jumped by a factor of 3. But now that Via Gayuba has also been designed and is in the running, that may be prioritized. We are doing a neighborhood survey to find out, to get our priority when we will have those within a couple of, hopefully at the next meeting, we will have our priorities. So those two, both of those two, MV13 and the Via Gayuba intersection is our, which is MV19, I believe, is are definitely important to watch out for. What was spoken to about the San Bernabe, that is the San Bernabe project. We want to finish the design project, MV10, which shouldn't be that much, but MV18 was the design phase 1 that we were initially had divided that into 2 phases because each phase was going to be under 500,000. Now that it's jumped from 500,000 to 1.3 million, obviously we're not going to vote on a 1.3 million. So I think what we're looking at for MV18 is to is to basically bring that down to start some funding by $250,000 to bring that project down to $250,000 towards construction. So it'll be kind of a phase 1 for construction for that project, so we can bring that down. That is a very highly supported project in the neighborhood, as you heard, and so we would really like to at least get that going. The finish of the design project, MV10, will be able to then better price out and phase that project properly, so with current costs, so we can decide how we can really phase that project. The big thing on that project is really putting in a safe sidewalk around that curve for pedestrians to walk in that neighborhood and to walk around that curve, because that is, a lot of people do walk there. So we have funded most of the design. The design is, as I see, pretty much completed, but according to Tom, there's a little bit left to do. So I want to talk about those. The street light on MV11 on El Caminito del Norte is definitely, that was the project voted in with the highest number of votes we had in 2019. So that should be a fairly simple, straightforward project. It's basically kicking PG&E to actually do the work. So there shouldn't be that much involved in the city. So that's what, and MV8 was still on here, and that project, that sign has been done. So there, I think we can talk to the submitter, we can safely cancel MV8. So that is off the docket. But that was Jane Sink who called in. She was happy to cancel that. With MV15, the Cielo Vista, just because the traffic calming, to answer the question of her husband why the other things were canceled, it was because I talked to his wife and we decided to get things done more efficiently. The drainage was the highest point. We could get that done this year because all the traffic stuff would take a traffic study and would be more involved, and they'll probably come back with that next year or try and work with the traffic engineer to get that figured out more, but that's why that's been reduced to drainage only, which also brings the cost way down. And with that, I think be happy to answer any more questions if anybody has them. Thank you.
So a question from Dennis.
Dennis, go ahead.
So if a project went from 270,000 to 760,000, and we've got basically road fixes for 2.6 million, those estimates will get updated after voting night? And will we then have voted in money spending greater than we're actually going to spend?
Yeah, the process, well, I'll speak to that one first. This is an estimate from the design engineer of construction costs, and this is probably a year or two old. Or we'll have to look at how current it is, but this was not a number that we just threw at it. This came from the design engineer. And then what was the other half of the question?
So will we get real estimates after the voting night or will we get it
Yes.
before?
So what we're proposing to do on voting night, we're going to get a list of priorities where all the projects are going to be numbered from 1 tonight. It's like 153, though we just lost a couple. So we're going to have a list of priorities based upon the voting. And we're going to go down with the estimates that we have. We will refine those for the projects that are the highest ranked projects. We'll fine tune those estimates before it goes to council. So that we'll have a better understanding, like some of the street lights. Earlier tonight, we talked about the 6 on Fairground. Right now, we're just assigning $20,000 per street light. We're assigning $1 million per restroom. It's just a flat number at this point. Ballpark. We'll tune it in. We'll have that information available before we go to council, and then we'll know how many projects will be on the list. We'll know that evening based on these numbers, but we'll dial that in prior to going to council.
And that's what we will need to decide as a commission is how far beyond the amount that we have allocated do we want to go and say these are the projects we want to have go to council?
So it's a massive cutoff project year.
Potentially.
Just because we can see that the estimates may be overstated. So when we get back to costing them, just overshoot the number by 20.
By some ratio, yes. And the goal is not to send an entire 150 project list, to have it reduced to where it's realistic to be doing it, because project 154 no one may want, and theoretically it could go ahead and then be approved. Mr. Whittree, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And I know this is a little bit new process in trying to not do a fine estimate prior to voting night, and that's something that we're changing. And part of the reason is twofold. One, as you're well aware, we spent a lot of funding in the past on estimates that was just simply going nowhere. We wanted to refine that number. We had well over 200 projects this year, which is really astronomical cost to try to estimate them all. The other thing I want to point out is with the rising inflation that we're at right now, we've seen a 7% rise in inflation just this year since January. So to estimate things now, by the time voting night and implementation comes forward, it really, once again, does not make a lot of sense. And some of the numbers seem high. Yes, they do seem high, but that's what the market is bearing right now. So I can appreciate we want to keep these as low as possible, as cheaply as possible. They'll be accomplished for as cheaply as possible, but there is some realizations we can come to with costs of capital projects these days. So thank you.
Thank you.
Then Dennis has his hand raised again here.
Yeah, he hasn't learned to wave it like Jamie.
No, I just calmly put my hand up. You know, these are extremely challenging economic times, and with 205 projects to look at because of the backlog handed back to us, you know, I realize the city staff is doing the best they can. I know for the business I work in, 15% price increase was necessary to cover the cost increase that we had, and it was tariffs, parts, and shipping. It's huge, and the economic impacts of the current economy is difficult on everybody. So I appreciate what staff is doing.
Thank you. Anyone else with a hand up in council chambers?
We are clear from here.
Okay, let's move on to next neighborhood.
Next
Our
neighborhood.
last one tonight.
Correct. New Monterey. There are 16 nominated projects this year in New Monterey. Here is page 1. And the second page as well. And I will flip through them as quickly as possible. Project number 1 is Lower Presidio Walkway. This is the Private Bolio Lighthouse intersection. Private number 2 is the Sloat Monument Repair and Restoration. This one has a note attached to it that there will be an agreement required with the federal government. That'd be the Army, because it's on the Presidio grounds. That will be required prior to commencing work. Project number 8 is for Belden Street and Drake Avenue open space acquisition. Project number 11 is the Hilltop Park Center repurposing analysis study. Project number 15 is Divisadero Street on the 700 block for a drainage swale. Project number 18 is a public restroom design on Cannery Row. And this again, we're suggesting that the project be preceded by the community-wide restroom study that we'll discuss in 2 weeks. Project number 19 is for a lighting upgrade at Bruce Aris Way, also at Cannery Row. Project number 20 is on Taylor Street, the 600 block. It's for a stabilized decomposed granite walkway. This would be for the design of this because as you can see in the photo, there are a number of trees that are located where the sidewalk would go. Project number 22 is at 1740 Prescott Avenue for a concrete sidewalk just to fill in the gap between what's there. Project number 23 is for the first half of design and construction funding for the Oak Street 500 block widening. Project number 25 is the second half. We'll get to that in, well, just a couple slides. Project number 24 is at David Avenue is Pine Street is for a request for LED stop signs. And project number 25 is the second half of the Oak Street widening project. Project number 29 is at Oak Newton Park for a Frisbee Golf putting zone. Project number 33 is on Lane Street for a concrete sidewalk. Project number 35 is at the Aeneas Bridge for restoration and repair of the bridge. And that's a very brief summary of those projects.
Okay, I'll open public hearing on the new Monterey projects. Anyone in the public who's online, please raise your hand or approach the dais. And is that Mr. Reeves again?
Tis me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to speak to project 24, which is the LED stop sign. That's a project I nominated. I was asked to come here tonight by our neighborhood representative, and she also informed me that for some reason staff is opposed to LED stop signs, which baffles me a little bit. I've been told that an alternative to this would be a highly reflective stop sign. That's not going to do it. That isn't going to be the answer. Stop signs have to be reflective anyhow. Even if this were a diamond grade reflective stop sign, it wouldn't help. I have personally been almost hit numerous times in this intersection. One time so close that I was able to slap the rear fender of the car that went whizzing past me. And that is not an exaggeration. David Avenue is an arterial street. Pine Avenue is a residential street. Pine and David, that's the only stop sign on David, the only one. And the worst problem are the traffic coming downhill, pretty obvious. And the problem happens day and night. Now, in the daytime, the problem is the car is usually coming up the hill. If it's in the fall, the sun's right in the motorist's eye, and they may not even see the stop sign. So I really think what needs to be done here is a more highly visible stop sign, or if the city wants to, they can spend a whole lot of money and put in the blinking lights in the crosswalk. I'm trying to do this with a reasonable price tag by just getting a bone simple stop sign with red LEDs that blink like they have out in Fort Ord. That is probably the lowest tech answer to this problem. We've got radar speed signs. We've got all kinds of technology out there, and I can understand the maintenance concerns that the city might have. And if the concern is this is going to set a precedent, I would say, well, maybe it will. We have an arterial street that serves all of that traffic that comes out of Cannery Row like David Avenue does. Guess what? It's a good precedent to set because the traffic coming out of Cannery Row has basically three alternatives: Lighthouse, Prescott, and David. And David gets a lot of traffic. And for us walkers, and I'm still an avid walker, the nicer place to walk is in Pacific Grove. It's a nice place to get down to the recreation trail, but you have to go across you have to go across David Avenue rather. The police sometimes get out there, and I'm sure it's just happy hunting grounds for them. So please, we need something done at David and Pine. and a retroreflective stop sign ain't gonna cut it. And I'm sure they're not gonna be willing to spend the money on a stop light. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in public? Okay, go ahead.
My name is Cesar Paci. I live at the corner of Oak Street and Hoffman. I live over there for 20 years, almost 29. And there is a situation over there. Oak Street going from my house to the park is a bottleneck, really. During these years, I saw many situations. If two cars, they are parked on each side of the street, the poor ambulance driver or the firefighter, they have to just knock on the door of the neighborhood just to pass. They are 12 feet from the fence of from my fence to the curb. Now, there is no walkway, there is nothing, just grass, all sand concrete. Long time ago in New Monterey, I came over here 51 years ago, I remember, working in construction in New Monterey. There were no plan, so the people, they were doing whatever they want. So Oak Street, it is in this way. To the right, people, they have their fence just close to the street. While in our side, we have 12 feet to widen the street. Please do this job because it's dangerous. I saw kids on the park got hurt, and the ambulance, they cannot go with the firefighter. So it's a long overdue. Please do this project because we need that. I'm 82 years old. I don't want to die. I want to see that before done. Thank you. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the council chambers?
Yes, one more.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, I'm Lee Henderson. I live on Oak Street, and I'm speaking in favor of the widening of Oak Street. I'd make primarily 3 points. The first is emergency vehicles. If you look down that street and imagine 2 trucks parked on either side of that street, you're not going to get a fire truck or an emergency vehicle through there. It's a very tight issue. We've had probably 4 or 5 vehicles, emergency vehicles through in the last 6 months. So the latter 2 points are a little more prescient, and they're related to the Oak Newton Park, which is used on the weekends very heavily by families. Families have kids, they have parties, they have picnics. You get cars bumper to bumper along both sides of the streets. An adult is bad enough walking out in between those 2 cars, but a small child is a little more problematic. So this is an accident waiting to happen virtually. So it's a real safety issue in terms of kids and so forth in the park and vehicles, neither of which actually mix. The third, of course, is the lack of a sidewalk on the side of the street opposite the park. There are children who live in one of the houses there. They try to go up and down in their driveway with their bicycles, but have no sidewalk to drive on. So, that's something that is another safety issue. And even today, as I came here, though, I pulled out of the drive, and as I'm going down the street, there's a family with a stroller and a couple of kids walking in the middle of the street because there is no sidewalk for them to walk on. So this is really a safety issue and something that I think really needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the council chambers?
Yes, I'm Donna Gibson. I'm speaking as a private citizen now. I also live on 500 block of Oak Street, and you should know that it's always one-way traffic. There's no way that 2 vehicles, we can have 2-way traffic on that block, even in the best of times. I mean, I've never had another car on the street at the same time I have. It is a safety issue. We have an elderly population that live on that street. Well over 50% of the occupants are over the age of 65. The other issue I guess I would raise is we actually polled the whole neighborhood of 500 block, and over 80% of the respondents said, yes, please widen the street. The other 3 are renters and they did not respond to our survey. So the whole neighborhood is behind this. We're willing to give up our right of way that we've had. You know, some people have even had gardens on the section that the city will take, but they're still supportive of it. And again, it's a safety and health issue in our minds. The only other one I'd like to speak on as a private citizen again is the Frisbee Golf, the NM 29. That park is so heavily used by children, dogs, adults. I think putting a Frisbee Golf putting station in that park is a bad idea. I think that it has much too much business in the park to allow a Frisbee being thrown. It's somebody's going to get hurt. So I really do not want to see that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
No. Oh, one more in the chamber.
Okay.
I just want to make a general comment. I've been at these meetings in past years, and this is the most organized, efficient one that I have ever been in. So thank you for not wasting anybody's time.
We try not to. We don't want to have our time wasted either. So it's, yeah, we want to make sure everyone gets a chance to speak, but try to do it efficiently. Okay, seeing no other members of the public, we'll close it and bring it back to the commission. Cannery, and I'm butchering your name and I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Pretty close. So I asked to communicate some priorities of the projects that are listed there. So the first one would be Project 19, the Bruce Arliss Way lighting, due to it being a safety hazard. The next one would be Project 2325, the Oak Street widening. Next one would be 22, Prescott 1740 sidewalk. Then after that would be Project 15, the Devisadero 700 drainage wall. And lastly, the park rec study. So that was number 11.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the commission wish to ask questions or speak to any of them? I'm not seeing any hands raised in council chambers. Unless I'm missing someone.
I was going to say how clever of you to keep all the windows open and freeze us out in here to keep us awake tonight.
I can't take any credit for that. Not seeing any hands raised, we will close the New Monterey projects, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, which I do believe is council comments, or commission comments. Kurt, you rushed and got your hand up first.
Actually, I have a question for Tom.
Okay.
You mentioned in the last meeting that you were going to go through and check the distances on the projects so that we know if we're going to have an issue voting on the project. I know for a fact I'm going to have an issue in Jack's Park, but we wrote to the state and they would allow me. But now that it's a new project, I'm not sure that is going to, that letter that we got from the state is going to stand up. So we probably need to check with the attorney on that.
Yes.
But how soon are you going to have that information for us? So if we need to write back to the state, we can get an answer from them. And they're notoriously very, very slow answering.
Yes. We have the maps of the projects. Cody has been working on that for at least a week. It's done. Oh, he says it's done now. So we have that information. Let's look at the ones and let's give you a call, Kurt, and talk about which projects you're within the radius of. And then if we need to send another letter to the FPPC, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Richard.
Yes, I have two requests. Given the uncertainty over costs, I'm asking the Finance Committee to look forward a year or two and try to come up with a contingency amount that makes sense. Because we have projects and really a lot of the costs are stabs in the dark, and we're going to need a substantial contingency. The amount is, I don't know what, but I think the Finance Committee did do that. The second request I have is, could the chair discuss with the city manager the financial condition of the city? I'm not up to date. Something you can email us that doesn't take a lot of conversation, just a paragraph. What the trials and tribulations of the city this year are and the possibility of how that affects our budget. Those are my only two comments.
Okay. I'll shoot a note or give the city manager a call and see what I can find out for us for our next meeting. Dennis, I believe I see a hand up.
Yes, always gently and not waving.
We teach you how to wave yet.
Oh, yeah, I can be boisterous when I need to. Part of what was taken back by the city was $819,000 that we had in contingency. We have about $850 in ending balance, but that request for what the contingency should be obviously is something we need to work on. But we do have in the ending balance a fund that could replace our previous contingency, but that will be done on voting night. The other thing I wanted to see what we can do about getting it on the agenda is what's in the notes from last time when I took off CW 73 for a CIP vote by the neighborhood supporting the community wildfire protection plan and I told the chief I'd let him know when that is on the agenda in case he wanted to come and speak on that issue. So if you could let me know when we can get that on the agenda, that I'd appreciate that.
That's a must.
Okay, Jamie.
Created.
2 points. I want to emphasize again the point that Dennis brought up earlier that about estimates and carryover projects, cutoff projects. I think it's great to not spend extra resources making estimates when 2/3 of them won't be used. But as a finance committee member, I think it's really important to hold us accountable and the city accountable for the efficient spending of all those dollars. So going forward, we're going to have to understand and be on top of that. If it's $1 million project, I don't want it to be $1 million project. It can be a $600,000 project. But I think we should adjust and keep this and make this work because it's going to work well. But the other thing is, I believe we had some projects that needed funding from contingency now. So we'll need to get that into this mix before we come up with a contingency for voting night.
Those are due to be in front of us at the next meeting.
Correct.
They originally were going to be at this meeting, but there were still some that they didn't have final info on. So that will be an agenda item at our next meeting subsequent to the public hearing portions.
Thank you.
Yep. And even though Mayor Clyde's not a member of the NCIP, and this is commissioner comments, I have a feeling he may be answering your question, Richard.
Yes, exactly. So this is just a point of order, if I can use that term, and informational.
I'll yield my time as a commission member to you.
Yeah, no, I would simply, I won't take long. We had a very sobering budget primer as described by Hans Uslar at our council meeting Tuesday night. And I would suggest if you take a look at the written report on the agenda and also listen to the report, that will answer all of your questions with respect to the status of our budget. It was very informative, and I think it's probably something all of the NCIP might want to watch or at least read so you can get a sense of where we are financially. Thanks.
But I take it, we will have funds to spend on NCIP this year?
Yes.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments? I don't have any comments other than maybe shorter night than I was expecting. So see, unless I'm missing anyone in the council chambers with a hand up, we are adjourned to 2 weeks from now for the second half of the project.